rewind a little bit and talk a little bit more about your childhood and growing up. And I know, like, you know, you didn't have a lot of baking happening during that time. And there was more Indian food, and as we call it very lovingly, desi. So anybody from South Asia is desi. But just to kind of like talk about it, I know all those flavors and those ingredients have definitely influenced what you are doing today. And your heritage, your culture, how did that impact your overall business and what you are doing today?
So I think initially when I first started, like just early on blogging, I wanted to capture a super large audience. And I was like writing any random recipes, really, none of it really made any sense. Now looking back at it, I'm like, who was I even writing for? Who was my audience? But I've been able to like kind of share my cooking background and my, like, you know, Indian American experience and realize like that is my target audience in the end. Is I am my own target audience. Other people like me, and I strive to create dishes that invoke these type of memories that I had, and I know that, you know, hundreds of thousands of other Indian American kids did too. But also at the same time, what I've realized, and this was like literally by pure accident, is it's also kind of helped me grow beyond just the Indian diaspora, in the sense that there's a lot of pastry people or bakers out there that are non-POC that have never utilized half these techniques. They've never toasted, you know, flowers on the stove with like a fat to make something with it. Like, to them, this is something new, and they, you know, they get excited about it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, a lot of these things are familiar to them. Like a bundt cake is familiar to them. Maybe gulab jamun might not be, but it seems like it's something familiar that they could do and enjoy.
Right.
And then the other half is, you know, us being Indian American, as we mix into the culture, there's a lot more of us not marrying desis, like other desis. And I've noticed, and I've gotten a lot of messages from people who've married, you know, someone that isn't Indian, that will make these desserts at like Thanksgiving or Christmas because it celebrates both halves of the families. Like to their desi parents, this is familiar, but then to, like, you know, their partner's parents, oh, I've had the, you know, cake before, cookies before. It's nothing seems like too new. Like, it's both comforting to both, right?
What a great target market. I didn't even think about that. Like, your ideal client being the, you know, mixed relationships, or as, however you want to call it. But that's, and that's so true, because I think the first time I actually ever had one of your recipe desserts was at a Thanksgiving event. Like, in our family. The creative industry is really, like, really gaining a lot of traction, because a lot of people are realizing that they find so much joy in their creative side. And so they really spend a lot more time in it. And I mean, just looking at you, there's just so many avenues that if you are a chef or if you are a baker and you love the joy of cooking, there's so many other avenues that you can participate in that industry and not just be somebody on Food Network. Like, you know, growing up, I love Food Network. I would always watch it. But then I always thought if you're a chef, that's your ultimate goal, to be on Food Network, or like, you know, something like
own
that.
Own a restaurant. For me, like, everyone, like, on MasterChef was like, so you want to own a restaurant? I'm like, no, I have zero interest in owning a restaurant. I know what comes with that. I don't want it. And that blew their mind. They're like, what's your dream goal? I'm like, honestly, to, like, write recipes and be the person behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's so incredible. So now today, and what you're doing today, you have a bakery online, and I truly believe, I think you're selling out every single time you post the menu and like the options that are available.
It's been kind of crazy. I like didn't expect that, to be honest. Just because I didn't realize they would go as fast as they do. What I did learn is, like, I am not able to meet the demand, so I'm like working on now, like, growing my business faster and trying to scale up, which has been a whole thing on its own, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the fire under my butt is there has been a lot of copycat bakers or bakeries that have come out. And I'm like, you know what? If other businesses are making money off of my recipes, why wouldn't I make money off my own recipes?
Yeah.
It is common sense to me.
That makes great sense. And I'm glad you talked about that. So let's talk a little bit about the legal side. So what are some legal things that you've actually encountered as you've been developing your business and cultivating Milk and Cardamom?
Yeah. Obviously, the biggest thing is like, you know, kind of copyright or like intellectual property type of things, where like for a long time I thought like, you know, whatever I made is something that I own, right? I created that, it's mine. And then what I realized after talking to a lawyer is that, yeah, I created it, but someone can totally take the same thing, take my recipe and sell it, and I can't do a thing about it. Food and, like you mentioned, fashion earlier, are two very wishy-washy areas of law. And there's not much protection for people out there, unfortunately. I had a lot of bakeries. Actually, I had one that was calling themselves the home of the original gulab jamun bundt cake. And I'm like, I created that. Like, it's like Dominique Ensel's cronut, right? Like, he created the cronut. That's his thing. It did not exist in the world until he created it.
Right.
And for the gulab jamun bundt cake, again, like, it did not exist in the world until I created it.
Yeah.
That concept is something I made. I feel very protective of my recipes in that sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's my brand, right? Like,
yeah. So what have you done? What actions have you done? Legal actions have you done to protect your brand and to protect other trademarks that you're creating in your brand?
Yeah. So I trademarked gulab jamun bundt cake. I also trademarked Milk and Cardamom. I took some of my most popular recipes and registered them for copyright. Anything in my cookbook is already registered for copyright anyway, because it's a physical item. Exactly. So I think I didn't really realize how much law I would have to learn and understand, like, especially being a creative in the food industry. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely need to protect myself because I put so much effort into creating these things. And I mean, in the end, the food world relies on ethics, and not everyone has the same level of ethics.
Right.
Right? The only thing I can do is ask people to credit me kindly. And if they don't, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do other than maybe sending them a cease and desist on using the word gulab jamun bundt cake.
And you should, because you're trademarking it and you got to police those words.
Exactly. So they can call it something else. But like, I never wanted to be that person. Right? Where like, you know, you always hear about like, oh, this big business went after a small business they're having. And I'm like, now I get it. Like, you work so hard to create something, and to then see someone try to pass it off as their creativity or their work is very frustrating. I'm very lucky that a lot of my followers police it for me. And whenever they see it, they message me and they're like, hey, and they'll slide me in my DMs and send me like a link to someone that's selling the cake and isn't crediting me or whatever it may be. The only time I ever go after is if someone's making money on it, and then also saying that they created it. If it's just like a blogger, everyday blogger, I'll like say something, but like if they are going to argue and like be really nasty, I let it go because it's not worth it for me. They're not making money on it at that point. And depending on how big the blogger is, it doesn't make sense for me to like really spend my energy on that. But if it is a business that is making money, then I do say something because they are profiting off of my work.
That, and then also they're diluting your brand and or diluting that trademark, not the brand, but the trademark itself. And so if, you know, for example, gulab jamun bundt cake just becomes a normal generic name, your trademark's not worth anything anymore. And so you want to make, that's another reason why you have to police, and I say it in air quotations because there's no better way to say it, but it's like that's why you have to police your trademark, because you do want to protect your brand. And so that's great. I'm so glad that you've actually done that and taken those actions, because sometimes people are scared to do it or they get overwhelmed by it. And at the end of the day, overwhelm and scare should not be part of the equation when you're trying to protect your business. You're working hard for it. So that's excellent. I know. Exactly. And I think a lot of times people who do start a business in their home don't necessarily know the legalities of it all, because it's just easy to just start. And later on is when people start gathering the, oh, I need to do this for law. Oh, I need to do this for accounting. Oh, I need to do this for this, right? So it's a very afterthought rather than a preemptive, let me just figure this out and get all my ducks in a row. And so that doesn't happen right away.
No, I've learned that as I talk more openly about these things and like running a legal bakery and, like creating these rules, a lot of people have come to like me with questions on like, well, how do I, legalize myself if I bake from home? What are my options? Or, how do I protect myself from other copycats, etc. So it's been really interesting to see that like it has sparked a little bit of a conversation within like the Desi food community to learn how to protect themselves, but also like run their business in a kosher way.
Yeah. How are you disrupting the industry? What are you doing to shake it up a bit?
So I've decided to do an online bakery, which is all online. There's no brick and mortar. But the other thing is I do not take orders as they come. I only do 2 pre-orders every month. So once in the beginning and once in the middle of the month. And then I'll bake them all the week after and send them out. So it's almost like the Supreme model. You know how they only have a limited number of items and they like drop it on one day and then when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing for me. So I drop a limited number of items on that pre-order date. And once it's gone, it's gone. I don't do any side orders.
I think it's a great idea. It's kind of like it keeps the hype, and it keeps also that like, oh my gosh, the urgency is there also to get it done. And I think that's brilliant. I mean,
I mean, even from a business perspective, right? Then I have money in my hands to go purchase ingredients.
Yeah.
Right? So like I know how much money that I have. I'm not wasting money on ingredients. Say I bought like enough ingredients for 600 cakes, but I only sold 300 or something. I just wasted ingredients, right? So this way I'm not losing money really in any aspect. I get a cash inflow to help pay for overhead, but then I'm also not utilizing more overhead than I need.
Yeah. That's brilliant on a business perspective as well.
Yeah.
I love that. What are some of your favorite business tools or resources?
Asana.
Yeah.
I love Asana. I use the crap out of Asana. I use it for everything because I break it down. I have different boards for like my sponsored posts and then sponsored posts that my daughter's in, because any money that I get from a post that like I wouldn't have gotten without her, that money goes to Ilara. I don't keep it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
We have like a setup blend. She's an employee of my business, actually.
Oh, I love that.
And she makes an income. So at the end of the year, I like calculate how many hours she was on. So I'll go through, see how many stories she was in, convert that to hours, give her an hourly rate, and pay her that.
That's incredible. What a great idea. I don't know if a lot of people do this, but this is a great idea.
Yeah, it's also a good tax thing for you and her. Right? Because I get a tax rate because she's an employee, but also she gets a 401k. I could put money in a 401k for her now.
Yeah.
So she'll be set. But yeah, I remember the IRS emailed us last year, and they mailed us, and they're like, she's 3 years old. And we're like, yes, we know. She's still an employee.
That's so funny. You're like, have you seen my post? Clearly do not follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, so I think sometimes when I like talk to brands or like people who want to sponsor something that's like a kids thing, I very much negotiate much harder than I normally would. And sometimes they don't understand that. And then when I tell them like any money I make from this goes to my daughter, they usually are very quick to be like, okay.
Yeah, but it's so brilliant. The idea is so brilliant. So
yeah, that is my Asana. I have my sponsored. Then I have all my photography boards. Yeah. I have all of that set up there. I also use an app it's a Gmail app called Sorted.
Oh.
Which, like, I'm one of those people that, like, I'll go through my email and then, like, not have the time to respond properly. So this thing, what you can do is open an email and then has, like, add to tomorrow's to-do list, add to today's to-do list, or remind me in a couple of days. And what it'll do is it'll either put it on your to-do list or it'll resend it to you, so that it shows up at the top of your inbox in a couple of days if you haven't responded. Like, it automatically knows that you didn't respond.
I love that. I kind of need that, I think. Sorted?
Yeah. SORTD.
I'm going to actually put all the links to these resources as well in the show notes.
Yeah, so. It's really good. Yeah, those two are probably and Shopify.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I just had such a great time talking to you. I feel like we can keep chatting for hours and have like a part 2 at another time. But whoever's listening today, how can they reach you? How can they find you? How can they follow you?
Yeah. So you can DM me at Milk and Cardamom on Instagram. I'm probably the most responsive there. but you can follow my blog at milkandcardamom.com. You can find out the date of my next pre-sale on my website at milkandcardamomsweets.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I've just been really happy. So thank you. I loved hearing your story, and I loved getting so much gems of great advice from you as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.